Good evening, friends.
Good evening.
Thank you. I think most of you know me by now. My name is Paul McComas, and I live half an hour up the road in Evanston. I've been coming here for 20 years last month to do presentations on different aspects of liberal arts, humanities, sometimes social sciences, and I also teach the monthly writing class, which I will now shamelessly plug. Our next meeting of the Open Writing Workshop, open to every kind of writing that you might want to do, is on Friday, May 29th, right here. And we generally meet on the last Friday of the month at 2 p.m. Right?
No, 1.
1 p.m., sorry. Chris will fix that in post.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's filming it. At 1 p.m. And the class goes about an hour and a quarter, hour 20, depending on how many people bring work in. Even if you don't bring in something you've written, please come and listen to what your friends and neighbors have written and discuss it with them. We have a great time. So again, Friday, May 29th, Open Writing Workshop. Open, poetry, memoir, personal essay, fiction, fable. Often I say, if you write a ballad and bring a lute and care to favor us, I've been saying that all the years I've been teaching writing, and no one has taken me up on it.
I wonder why.
So over these 20 years, I've done presentations here on all manner of subjects, from a compare and contrast between the movies Casablanca and High Noon, to a look at coming-of-age literature, to Ravel's left-handed piano concerto in D minor, I believe. So now we're down to the smaller matters. Please.
Well, you did Shakespeare.
And I did Shakespeare, that's right. Now I'll do Shakespeare again. I'll do Shakespeare anytime. Yeah, the meaning of life. What is the meaning of life? Or the way I like to rephrase it, what is life for? Why are we here? When I first developed this program about 15 years ago, I think I had a list of 10 possibilities. And doing the program over and over added, and I think getting older also added. And notice there's a blank there near the bottom of the right-hand column, because that's a way of acknowledging that there's a lot more than I thought of. And in fact, this is in this most recent go-round. After I finished it, printed it, I thought of one more, so I added it right in there. Passion. Passion for living, people say. Passion is often when someone says they feel most alive, and if this is what is life for, really I think passion needs to be in there. This is part 2 of 2. And I would like to dedicate this second part to my friend, Francisco Gonzalez Cruci, from whose work we'll be hearing tonight. And I'll tell you more about him at that time. He is 90 years young, and we'll be watching video of this, thanks to my friend Chris and his 2 cameras. In part 1, we looked at what a few different authors had to say through their fiction about the meaning of life. And they weren't saying it explicitly, here's my story about the meaning of life. You have to kind of read between the lines to get what they're saying about life. We looked at a story called Story of Pictures by Tony Early, contemporary writer. He talked about the beauty of nature and the mystery of life, change from childhood through puberty and adolescence toward adulthood, curiosity, a bunch of things that are on this list. Essentially, it was the story of a boy during the Depression years in rural North Carolina who goes to the old swimming hole one hot summer day, and a lady photographer from the WPA walks out of the brush and sets up her camera and takes the pictures and takes her clothes off and takes a dip. And she doesn't know he's there, or does she? And it's about the beauty of this natural place and also the beauty of nature as found in this woman. Importantly, it's not a woman he knows, it's someone who is in from out of state to take these pictures. And so that adds to the mystery of it and the uniqueness and kind of the sacredness of the experience. He sees her that one time and never again, but it has a big impact on him. And we also took a look at an excerpt from Carson McCullers' novel, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, involving a 15-year-old girl, also during the Depression, named Mick, who is a musical prodigy, but she doesn't know it. And at night, she will sneak around into the backyards of the wealthy people's houses to listen to the classical music on their radios and to try and figure it out in her head and try to remember it, memorize it. And she's discovering her love of music. I think art and creativity are a big part of what life is about, at least for me and for many. I often say that the arts in general have saved my life again and again since childhood. And we looked at an excerpt from Patricia James, P.D. James' novel, Children of Men, an excerpt I called Nativity. It's a speculative fiction novel about, it imagines that human beings lose the capacity to reproduce. And that scene, Nativity, documents the first human birth that has occurred in a 25-year period. And that piece is about connection and family, mystery, nature, struggle, love. And I threw in a song of mine too, Hand Over Hand, which goes with the scene from my own work that I'll be sharing tonight and deals with struggle and perseverance, transcendence, mystery. Mystery is the MVP. Mystery keeps showing up in all of these pieces. And I think that makes sense because who understands everything there is to understand and know about life? Raise your hand, please. And then trade places with me. Okay. I'm going to read from Alice Sebold's novel, The Lovely Bones. It's one of my favorite American novels. And a lot of people steer clear of it because they hear the premise. It is about a 12-year-old girl, Susie Salmon, who is raped and killed. And the novel is from her point of view, from her heaven. My heaven, she calls it. Everyone has their own heaven. And those events I described are in the first chapter, and if you can make it through the first chapter, then the rest of the book is golden. And you can make it through the first chapter because she's narrating it from a safe place where her spirit now dwells. This scene takes place a year after her passing, and I call it the first anniversary of my death. So again, this is from the point of view of the deceased girl. When my friends Ray and Ruth arrived at the cornfield where I'd been found, they were silent and he was holding her hand. She didn't know whether he was holding it because they were observing my death together or because he liked her. Then she saw that they had not been the only ones to think of me. Hal and Samuel Heckler were standing in the cornfield with their hands jammed in their pockets and their backs turned toward her. Ruth saw yellow daffodils on the ground. "Did you bring those?" Ruth asked. "No," said Hal. "They were here when we got here." Mrs. Stead watched from her son's upstairs bedroom. She decided to throw on her coat and walk out to the field. It was not something she even tried to judge whether or not she belonged there. Grace Tarking was walking around the block when she saw Mrs. Stead leaving her house with a poinsettia. They talked briefly in the street. Grace said that she was going to stop at home, but yes, she would then come and join them. Grace made 2 phone calls, one to her boyfriend, who lived a short distance away in a slightly richer area, and one to the Gilberts. Grace offered to escort the Gilberts, since they were older, and cutting across neighbors' lawns and over the bumpy earth of the cornfield could be a challenge to them. But yes, Mr. Gilbert had said he wanted to come. They needed this, he told Grace. His wife particularly, he said, though I could see how crushed he was. He always covered his pain by being attentive to his wife.
By the time darkness fell, the candles that the latecomers had had the foresight to bring lit up the cornfield. It seemed like everyone I'd ever known or sat next to in a classroom, from kindergarten to my last grade, 8th, was there. In my heaven, I buzzed with heat and energy as more and more people reached the cornfield and lit their candles and began to hum a low dirge-like song, for which Mr. O'Dwyer called back to the distant memory of his Dublin grandfather. My neighbors were awkward at first, but the secretary from the school clung to Mr. O'Dwyer as his voice gave forth, and then she added her own less melodious one. My father, sister, and brother heard the singing once they were outside our house. Everything in my father leaned and pitched toward the warmth and light. He wanted so badly to have me remembered in the minds and hearts of everyone. And I knew something as I watched. Almost everyone was saying goodbye to me. They would go back to their homes and put me to rest after this year. And I could say goodbye to them too, wish them well, bless them somehow for their good thoughts. A handshake in the streets, a dropped item picked up and handed back, or a friendly wave from a distant window, a nod, a smile, a moment when the eyes lock over the antics of a child. Ruth saw my 3 family members first, and she tugged on Ray's sleeve. "Go help him," she whispered. And Ray moved forward. Samuel came away too. Like youthful pastors, they brought my father and sister and brother into the group, which made a wide berth for them and grew silent. My father had hardly been outside the house, except to drive back and forth to work, for months, nor had he seen his neighbors. Now he looked at them from face to face to face, until he realized that I had been known and loved by people he didn't even recognize. His heart filled up warm again, as it had not been in what seemed so long. He looked at Mr. O'Dwyer. "Stan," he said, "Susie used to stand at the front window during the summer and listen to your singing and you singing in your yard. She loved it. Will you sing for us now?" And in the kind of grace that is granted, but rarely, and not when you wish it most, say to save a loved one from dying, Mr. O'Dwyer wobbled just a moment on his first note, and then sang loud and clear and fine. Everyone joined in, and in that moment, it struck me. These people were the lovely bones that had grown around my absence. The connections, sometimes tenuous, sometimes made at great cost, but often magnificent, that happened after I was gone, because I was gone. And I began to see things in a way that let me hold the world without me in it. The events that my death wrought were merely the bones of a body that would become whole at some unpredictable time in the future. And the price of what I came to see as this miraculous body, the price had been my life. Life. Hey, that's what we're talking about tonight. And I love the way Alice Sebold writes about this aspect of life. I've read a portion of this at several memorial services over the years, and I indeed have made friends at those memorial services, those new connections, the lovely bones of a body that is taking shape before our eyes, not in spite of, but because of someone's passing. I mean, we could say, okay, that's the silver lining, essentially, is what we're talking about. But another way of looking at it is that even in the darkest times, there is potentiality. And that outlook is something that we try to hold on to as we move our way through life. Dr. Francisco Gonzalez Cruci, Frank, he was born and raised in Mexico City. He moved to the United States and became the head of pathology at what was Children's Memorial Hospital in Lincoln Park. And even as he was pursuing that storied academic and medical career, he was also becoming an acclaimed author. If you can imagine being the chief of pathology and the supervisor, therefore, of autopsies for children, this is someone who ends up thinking an awful lot about life and death, which of course are intertwined. The very notion of life implies an end point. Otherwise, you're talking about eternity, not about life. And I want to read to you from Frank's piece, Moonlight Autopsy, in his collection, The Day of the Dead, from, I think, 1993. Frank is 90, he lives in Chicago, and again, I will be sending him a tape of this. So there's the pressure I need to do it justice. What he's writing about, essentially, is a time when a television show, a serious one, I think maybe PBS or BBC, wanted to film tactfully elements of an autopsy, and in this case it was the autopsy of a boy, and so special movie lights have to be brought in, and as you'll see, it becomes a different kind of experience than ever before. The TV director asks me point blank for permission to film a child's autopsy. This request raises serious misgivings on my part. Any spectacle that includes the shedding of blood is capable of triggering profound and uncontrollable reactions in the spectator. The effect may be so unsettling that the self becomes dislocated, hence that extraordinary phenomenon, to this day incomprehensible and mysterious, that consists of swooning upon the sight of blood. It is as if the consciousness had a flashing realization of its own mortality. Not a general abstract knowledge that we are all mortal, but a concrete and immediate prescience that death is inside each of us. It is as if the red and viscous fluid gliding free represented to the mind that our lives are rivers that stray to a sea of nothingness. And this terrible image is found so utterly unbearable that the brain prefers to blot it out by suppressing all sensations and all perceptions in a single abrupt drawing of curtains. Am I afraid of death? In the words of Woody Allen, I'm not afraid of dying, I just don't want to be there when it happens. But the truth is that I, like any man, cannot truly answer any questions about life's end. Even the greatest minds have been at a notorious disadvantage. If perchance one of us decides to peek his head across the postern, he is sucked in and gone for good. The opening is one way, and so constructed that a barrier falls immediately behind those who intrude in the beyond. The barrier is hermetic and infallible, so that the intruder can never go back. Never a mousetrap more perfect cannot be conceived. I approach, and then the negotiations follow and the autopsy occurs. I approach the body, scalpel in hand. Swiftly, unhesitatingly, I trace the long, Y-shaped incision known to pathologists the world over since the times of the great masters. On the surface, this is an autopsy like any other, yet a peculiar sensation gradually seizes me. Save for the whirring of the cameras, an unaccustomed, heavy silence prevails. It is an oppressive, thick, almost palpable stillness, which serves as a background, alternatively, to the brief staccato of scissors or knives, then the low-toned adagio of the saw, and then the largo of the suction pipes. Moonlight Sonata, for the light is lunar. The clever arrangement of powerful white movie lamps and reflecting screens has the effect of diffusing a silvery glare, a brightness such as a full moon might project upon a quiet lake on a cloudless evening. This metaphor seems ill-suited to a scene of anatomical dissection, but I do not know how best to describe the strange, eerie, pearl-white glimmer that floods the ambience. When the containers with liquid nitrogen are opened to receive pieces of tissue that must be frozen instantaneously for special study, a vapor escapes that draws capricious arabesques in the air, like volutes with mother-of-pearl fringes. Then it seems as if we are all immersed in a perceptible thin ether, or as if we move in a submarine landscape. I am certainly not new to the autopsy suite, yet it seems to me that I watch the developments taking place here for the first time. A question obtrudes itself repeatedly in my mind. What are we doing here? Ostensibly, we perform a technical procedure aiming to uncover pathologic diagnoses. But is this all? All these manipulations, all these activities in and around a cadaver suggest something else. A hidden symbolism appears to emerge through the uncanny synergism of light and silence. If a detached, intelligent being from a remote past civilization, say a cultured Greek philosopher or a polished Chinese minister of a dynastic emperor, were to peek in, he would conclude that a religious ceremony of the utmost solemnity was being performed, for he would see a group of people robed from head to toe in strange vestments, talking in whispers to each other, masked, gloved, and never leaving the place of their ministrations, or if they do, never entering it again without first subjecting themselves to elaborate purification rites. One of them advances with a determined air, a scalpel in his hand. Surely this must be the high priest, and splits open the marvel of the human body. Every recess, every sanctum sanctorum is unveiled. Every tabernacle is overturned. The loops of bowel, until then blind snakes creeping in total darkness. The heart, until then mad nightingale beating itself against the barred walls of its dank dungeon. And the brain, undisturbed contemplator, who prefers, as did Immanuel Kant, a lightless thinking room for his abstractions. All are brusquely enveloped by brilliant flashes of light and the sound of voices and the tinkling of stainless steel instruments and the multifarious emanations of the outer air. Barriers have disappeared, and two realms merge into one with the momentum of a tidal wave. The opening up of a human body is tantamount to penetrating the world of the sacred, for the human form is never penetrated without fear or awe or passion. The interior of the body houses the energy necessary for all vital activities, the mysterious spark that propels life's flow and animates its stubborn pulsations. The interior of the body is sacred space. And I'll stop there. You see why I admire this guy. Something of a moral mentor to me. There's a tendency to talk about earthly and fleshly matters and to consider them somehow debased compared to the spiritual and the internal. And Dr. Gonzalez Cruci believes, as I do, that these are not separate. These are enmeshed. And yes, life is sacred. And so is the vessel that holds it. Birth is a sacred phenomenon, and death, the other boundary of a lifespan, therefore is sacred as well, and not to be dreaded. In a sense, I think what he's saying here is that, among other things that he's saying a lot, life is about corporeality, about physicalness, about the fact that we have bodies. Everyone who's ever lived has had a body. Stephen Hawking had a body that repeatedly failed him, and yet look at the life that he lived. Corporeality, bodiliness, physicality, and in a sense, life is about mortality, because we know it's going to end. That's what makes it a life. So you could say that life is about death. I like the bit about the musique concrète that occurs during the procedure. It reminds me of young Mick as she listens to the radios in the backyards in The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. Music can take many forms, and it can inspire in all of those forms. I'm going to read to you from my own novel, my first novel, from 2002, Unplugged. And this piece is called The Answering Wind. Unplugged is about a 27-year-old rock musician, Dana Clay. She is experiencing rocketing success in her career, but her soul, meanwhile, is falling just as steeply and as deeply due to experiences of childhood rape, the depression and post-traumatic stress that have followed. And she attempts suicide. It is not completed, so she goes off on her own, randomly in a car, winds up in the Badlands of South Dakota, where this excerpt takes place. And she's still unsure whether life is worth living. But she's starting to climb, literally, the formations of the Dakota Badlands, and figuratively trying to climb, at least, inside. Silent and intent, Dana worked her way up the tallest Badland formation in sight, a massive mountain of earth and clay that contrived to undermine its climbers' every expectation. What had seemed a straightaway from below turned out, when she reached it, to harbor a yawning chasm. With a running start, she thought, I could jump that. Oh, probably. But how stable is the other side? There was no way to tell, and Dana was not feeling lucky, had not felt lucky, in fact, for a long time. Still, it had taken the better part of the day to climb this high, and she was not about to turn back now. So she retreated several steps and began ascending a steep ridge off to the right. Dana climbed well. She was light and lithe, both of which helped. More crucially, though, she had a keen climber's eye, a natural talent for spotting the handhold that would in fact hold, the ledge that would not dislodge but endure, the foothold that would bear her full weight. Occasionally she would miscalculate and send a just loosened fragment bumpily tumbling all the way down. At first Dana paused to watch whenever this occurred, thinking, I guess that's the same plunge my body would make if I were to misstep or lose my balance. But after the first few times, she began to grow in confidence, to understand less with her mind than with her legs and arms, her flesh, muscle, and bone, that she was not going to fall. For better or worse, she thought, I am this body, and this body seems to know what it's doing. Thus affirmed, she climbed in time to a flat stretch that sloped up toward a gently concave cliff with a tier of cumulus clouds hovering beyond it. This must be it, she thought. I've reached the top. Advancing now with ease, she found herself more in awe with every step, for what could she see off in the distance? No slopes, no peaks, no horizon over the edge, nothing at all but clouds and sky. She had lost track of just how high she'd managed to climb, and now seemed to have arrived at the edge of the world. Not till she'd reached the very brink could Dana make out a hazy line of ghost-like formations miles and miles away. She looked straight down. Far below, the white river snaked its way serenely through a valley dotted with cottonwoods and ash. There to the west, a herd of bison. There to the north, 2 horses nuzzling in a sunny pasture. There in between, a vacant dirt road wending its way to nowhere. Dana sat down on the lip, legs dangling, and gazed out and down and all around. She watched the clouds crawl by, watched their shadows creep over the grassland and the prairie. It was a staggering view, a breathtaking sight, and it would make, she thought, a breathtaking place to breathe my last breath. It was tempting, because it would be so easy, so freeing, so right to simply dive off and then drop down, 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 swiftly reversing her laborious ascent, and then meet the ground from which she'd started and let it erase in an instant all of her pain. Maybe that's why her earlier suicide attempt had been thwarted, so that she could die not in some dank, dark urban garage, but out here, in the air, on the land, in the light. Dana stood. She had hoped, longed, even prayed for deliverance, and it had seemed for a while that her wish had been granted, that the land itself was the answer, and all she had to do was stay put and take it in. That had worked at first, but then it had stopped working. Her despair had returned, a thick, serrated saw of sorrow and pain. And so, it was time. Dana took a step forward and up and closed her eyes. She heard the wind whistling in her ears, felt it swirling, curling, currents and cross currents buffeting her from all directions, and she thought, a single step is all it takes. Gusts from her left, her right, and then both sides squeezing. From the front, the right, the back and left at once. One step, she thought, that will save me so many others. When from behind, then behind and right, from her left, still from her left, and then from the front. One tiny step that will cure me, solve everything. Gusts from her left, and then from the front. Still from the front. Still from the front. From the front only. Harder. Even harder, pushing and prodding her, urging her back away from the edge. Digging her heels into the clay, Dana stood her ground, equally afraid to step forward or back, to die or live. So she vowed to wait the wind out and choose her own answer. Then it occurred to her, the wind itself might be an answer. And it seemed to be telling her, feel, see, yearn, breathe, heal, be, turn, leave, purge, strive, live, grow, merge, thrive, give, go. Dana opened her eyes and backtracked 1, 2, 3 paces. The cold blast in her face subsiding a bit with every step. Was the wind dying down because she was lower now, less exposed, or crazy as it sounded, because she had done as the wind had asked? Or, she thought, are those explanations one and the same? Another question, the one that had tormented her since her depression began, now returned, but this time, when she spoke the question aloud, her tone was one more of wonder than of despair. Who am I? She said. Who on earth am I? Dana stood and waited, but no reply came. No big surprise there. It was a tougher question, really more of a riddle. Should I live or die was a simple yes or no that nature arguably had answered in the affirmative on her behalf. But this other question, this far more open-ended one, who am I? Dana licked her chapped lips. Tentatively, she smiled. This one, she thought, this one I may have to tackle on my own. Then she took a deep breath and, turning away from the ledge, began the long, slow, bumpy climb back down to solid ground. There are two things in here that remind me of a piece from last time's story of pictures. Jim at the swimming hole, glorying in the nature and the beauty, and also feeling a great urge to go. It's after that day at the swimming hole that he realizes how small his town is, when this woman from somewhere else comes in and just changes everything through the beauty of her body and of her swimming. And he feels this urge to go. He hears the trains going through at night and he wants to be on them. And in this case, go means to live. I include Ernest Hemingway's The Snows of Kilimanjaro as a study in contrast. What I mean by that is, well, back in my salad days of figure modeling, if I were to strike a pose like that, the teacher might well say, and often did, don't draw Paul. Draw that triangle. To understand what Paul's form looks like, you begin with that triangle. It's also said if you want to carve a woman from marble, you just take a slab, chip away everything that doesn't look like a woman. Right? I've taught the hero's journey. I've also taught the cowards. Because in studying the coward's journey, specifically, I like to use a specific episode of The Twilight Zone. Studying the coward's journey, you see everything that's missing. Everything that's in the hero's journey. And Hemingway, I'm not going to talk about his motives, whether he related to this protagonist or whether he was critiquing this protagonist. It doesn't matter to me what his intentions were, because what I get from this is a really vivid depiction of someone who has no freaking clue what life is about or what life is for. The Snows of Kilimanjaro, condensed lovingly, begins with an epigraph. Kilimanjaro is a snow-covered mountain 19,700 feet high, the highest mountain in Africa. Its western summit is called in Maasai the House of God. Close to the summit is the dried, frozen carcass of a leopard. No one has ever explained what the leopard was seeking at that altitude. I like to do this piece because it's not a dramatic reading. The character is so different from me, I'd like to think this is actually acting. Can't you let a man die in peace? You're not going to die, she said. Oh, don't be silly, I'm dying now. Ask those bastards. He gestured over to where the huge, filthy birds sat, their naked heads sunk into the hunched feathers. A fourth one planed down to run quick-legged and then waddle slowly toward the others. Oh, she said, they are around every camp. You never even notice them. Besides, you can't die if you don't give up. Where did you read that? You're such a bloody fool. You know, you might think about someone else. Oh, for Christ's sake, he said. He lay then and was quiet for a while and looked across the heat shimmer of the plain to the edge of the bush. There were a few Thompson's gazelles, and far off he saw a herd of zebra. This was a pleasant camp under big trees, against a hill with good water. Wouldn't you like me to read to you? She asked. She was sitting on a canvas chair beside his cot. No, thanks. Maybe the truck will come. I don't give a damn about the truck. Well, I do. Yeah, you give a damn about so many things I don't. Not so many, Harry. How about a drink? It's supposed to be bad for you, though, under the circumstances. It's said in the first aid manual to avoid alcohol. You really shouldn't drink. He shouted for one of the boys who brought him a whiskey soda. You shouldn't, she said. That's what I mean by giving up. It says it's bad for you. I know it's bad for you. No, he said. It's good for me. So now it was all over, he thought. So now he would never have a chance to finish it. So this was the way it ended? Bickering over a drink? Since the gangrene started in his right leg, he had had no pain, and with the pain, the horror had gone too, and all he felt now was a great tiredness and anger. For what now was coming, he had little curiosity. For years it had obsessed him, but now it meant nothing. Strange how easy being tired enough made it. I wish we'd never come, the woman said. You never would have gotten anything like this in Paris. Well, you said you loved it here. I did when you were all right. I don't see why that had to happen to your leg. What have we done to have that happen to us? Well, I suppose what I did was forget to put iodine on it when I first scratched it. And then I didn't pay any attention to it because I never infect. And then later when it got bad, it was probably using that weak carbolic solution when the other antiseptics ran out. I don't mean that, she said. And if we'd hired a good mechanic instead of a half-baked Kikuyu driver, he'd have checked the oil and never burned out the bearing in the truck. I don't mean that, she said. And if you hadn't left your own people, your goddamn old West Bertie, Saratoga, Palm Beach crowd, to take me on. Why, I loved you, she said. That's not fair. I love you now. I'll always love you. Don't you love me? No, said the man. I don't think so. I never have. Harry, what are you saying? You're out of your head. I haven't any head to be out of. Harry yawned. He eyed his glass. Don't drink that, she said. Darling, please don't drink that. We have to do everything we can. You do it, he said. I'm tired. And then he slept. When he awoke, the birds no longer waited on the ground. They were all perched heavily in a tree. There were many more of them. His personal boy was sitting by the bed. Mem Sahib's gone to shoot, the boy said. Does Bwana want? No, nothing, said Harry. She had gone to kill them a piece of meat, and she had gone well away so that she would not disturb this little pocket of the plain that he could see. She was always thoughtful. It was not her fault that when he'd met her, he was already over. How could a woman know that you meant nothing that you said, that you spoke only from habit? After he no longer meant what he said, his lies were more successful with women than when he had told them the truth. It was not so much that he lied, though, as that there was no truth to tell. He'd had his life, and it was over. But then he'd gone on living it again with different people and more money, with the best of the same places and some new ones, too. You kept from thinking, and it was all marvelous. You were equipped with good insides so that you did not go to pieces the way most of them had. And you made an attitude that you cared nothing for the work you used to do now that you could no longer do it. He heard her returning to camp, talking to the boys. Then she sat back down beside him. You won't talk to me like that again, will you? Promise me. I don't remember what I said. You know, you don't have to destroy me. I'm only a middle-aged woman who loves you. And anyway, the plane will be here tomorrow. How do you know that? Oh, I'm sure it's bound to come. The boys have the wood all ready and the grass. I went down and looked. There's plenty of room to land, and we have fires ready to light at both ends. What makes you think it will come tomorrow? Oh, I'm sure it will. It's overdue now. And then in town, they'll fix up your leg. Well, should we have a drink? The sun's down. Do you really think you should? I'm having one. Well, we'll have one together then. While it grew dark, they drank. And just before there was no longer enough light to shoot, a hyena crossed the open on his way around the hill. Oh, that bastard. He crosses there every night, the man said, every night for 2 weeks. Yes, she said, he's the one that makes the noise at night. I don't mind it. They're filthy animals, though. Drinking together with no pain now except the discomfort of lying in the one position, with the boys lighting a fire and its shadow jumping on the tents, he could feel the return of acquiescence, of pleasant surrender. She was very good to him. He had been cruel and unjust in the afternoon. She was a fine woman, marvelous really, and just then it occurred to him that he was going to die. It came with a rush, not as a rush of water nor of wind, but of a sudden, evil-smelling emptiness. And the odd thing was that the hyena slipped lightly along the edge of it. Harry could stand pain as well as any man until it went on too long and wore him out. But here he had something that had hurt frightfully, and just when he had felt it breaking him, the pain had stopped. This now was easy, and if it got no worse as it went on, then there was nothing to worry about, except that he would rather be in better company. He thought a little about the company that he would like to have. Then, no, he thought. When everything you do too long and do too late, you can't expect to find the people still there. The people are all gone. Party's over and you're with your hostess now. Oh, he thought, I'm getting as bored with dying as with everything else. It's a bore, he said out loud. What is, my dear? Anything you do too bloody long. He looked at her. She was leaning back in the chair, and the firelight shone on her pleasantly lined face, and he could see that she was sleepy. He heard the hyena make a noise just outside the range of the fire. He said, I'm tired. Do you think you'll be able to sleep? Pretty sure. Why don't you turn in? I'd like to sit here with you. Do you feel anything strange? He asked. No, just a little sleepy. I do. He had just felt death come by again. You know, he said to her, the only thing I've never lost is curiosity. Oh, you've never lost anything, she said. You're the most complete man I've ever known. Christ, he said, what is that? Your intuition? Just then death had come and rested its head on the foot of the cot, and he could smell its breath. Never believe any of that, he told her, about a scythe and a skull. It could be two bicycle policemen, or a bird, or have a wide snout, like a hyena. It had moved up on him now, but it had no shape. It simply occupied space. Tell it to go away, she said. It did not go away, but moved a little closer. You've got a hell of a breath, he told it. It moved closer still, and now he could not speak to it. And when it saw he could not speak, it came a little closer, and now he tried to send it away without speaking. But it moved in on him, so its weight was all upon his chest. And while it crouched there and he could not move or speak, he heard the woman say, Bwana is asleep. Take the cot up very gently and carry it into the tent. He could not speak to tell her to make it go away. And so it crouched now, heavier, so that he could not breathe. And then while they lifted the cot, suddenly, it was all right. And the weight went from his chest. Then he was in the plane somehow. It had come after all, piloted by his old friend Compy. They began to climb, and they were going to the east, it seemed. And then it darkened, and they were in a storm. The rain so thick it seemed like flying through a waterfall. And then they were out, and Compy turned his head and grinned and pointed, and there ahead, all he could see, as wide as all the world, great, high, and unbelievably white in the sun, was the square top of Kilimanjaro. And then he knew that there was where he was going. Just then the hyena stopped whimpering in the night and started to make a strange crying sound. The woman heard it, and she stirred uneasily, but she did not wake. Then the noise the hyena made was so loud she woke, and for a moment she did not know where she was. Then she took the flashlight and shone it over on the other cot. She could see his bulk under the mosquito bar. Somehow he had gotten his leg out, and it hung down alongside the cot. The dressings had all come down, and she could not look at it. Harry, Harry, she said, then her voice rising. Harry, please, oh, Harry? There was no answer, and she could not hear breathing. Outside the tent, the hyena made the same strange noise that had awakened her, but she did not hear it for the beating of her heart. This tiredness, this weariness, this boredom. Tired of what? Bored with what? With life itself. It's not that he lied, he tells himself, as there's no truth to tell. You notice on this list, I make sure to put truths in, to start it with a lowercase t. In my experience, capital T truth is out there somewhere, and maybe we'll find it on the other side. And in the meantime, we find the lowercase t truths. And one of them to me is that this is not the way to live. This is not someone who understands what life is for. The way he treats his lover is abhorrent. I love the fact that in the last 2 pages, When he's dead, the point of view shifts to her. And the last line is about the beating of her heart. She's alive. He's not. She's alive given his departure. I would say maybe in a way that she hasn't been alive in a long, long time. The pain had stopped, but the tiredness remained, the pain of living. He feels emptiness, and that makes sense because he does not have enough of these other things in here that make life meaningful. Anything you do too bloody long is a bore, he says, and he's referring to living. This, of course, forecasts Hemingway's suicide a quarter of a century later in 1961. I want to close with a piece that is not a study in contrast at all. Rather, it sums up for me, maybe better than any other piece, what life is about, what it is for, what its meaning is. This is from Steinbeck, John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, 1939. I consider this the best final scene in American literature. And you know, this is the Depression era novel of the Joad family. Their farm in Oklahoma is foreclosed on. They head west for California, lured by false promises from flyers that are intentionally bringing more people out there than are needed in order to drive the wages down. And they run into all kinds of terrible troubles and challenges. I've always thought that Joad is similar to Job for a reason. The trials of the Joad family rival those of the biblical Job. In the novel's final act, the family is living inside an abandoned boxcar when massive flooding forces them to take refuge up on its roof. Here, Ma and Pa Joad's daughter, Rose of Sharon, delivers a stillborn baby. With no way to bury it, they send the tiny body in a box down the creek, Moses-like, leading to this final scene as the merciless rain continues to pour down. The family huddled atop the boxcar, silent and fretful. The children and the men slept soddenly side by side, and Ma lay close to Rose of Sharon. Sometimes Ma whispered to her, and sometimes sat up quietly, her face brooding. Under the blanket, she hoarded the remains of the family's bread. The rain now became intermittent, little wet squalls, and then brief, quiet times. In the morning, Rose of Sharon whispered to Ma, and Ma put her hand under the blanket and felt Rose's breast. Ma nodded her head. Yes, she said, it's time for it. And she turned to where the men lay. We're getting out of here, getting to higher ground. Y'all are coming or you ain't coming, but I'm taking Rose of Sharon and the little fellas out. Pa slipped into the water and stood waiting. Ma helped Rose of Sharon down to the platform and steadied her across the car. Pa took Rose in his arms, held her as high as he could, and pushed his way carefully through the deep water around the car to the highway embankment. He set Rose down on her feet and held on to her. Uncle John carried little Ruthie and followed. Then Ma slid down into the water, and for a moment, her skirts billowed out around her. Winfield, she said, sit here on my shoulder. Now keep your feet still, boy. Ma staggered off through the breast-high water. At the embankment, Pa helped her up and lifted Winfield from her shoulder. They stood on the highway and looked back over the sheet of water, the dark red blocks of the train cars, the trucks and motor cars sunk deep in the slowly moving water. And as they stood, another little misting rain began to fall. We got to get along, Ma said. Rose of Sharon, you feel like you could walk? Kind of dizzy, the girl said. I feel like I've been beat. Pa complained. Now that we're a-going, Ma, where are we a-going to? Ma shook her head. I don't know. Come on, give your hand to Rose of Sharon. Ma took the girl's right arm to steady her, and Pa her left. We're going someplace where it's dry. We got to. You fellas ain't had dry clothes on for 2 days. They moved slowly along the highway. They could hear the rushing of the water in the stream beside the road. Ruthie and Winfield marched together, splashing their feet against the road. They went slowly as the sky grew darker and the rain thickened. No traffic moved along the highway. We got to hurry, Ma said. If this here girl gets good and wet, I don't know what'll happen to her. Pa reminded Ma, You ain't said yet where we're a-hurrying to. The road curved along beside the stream. Ma searched the land and the flooded fields. Far off the road on the left, on a slight rolling hill, a rain-blackened barn stood. Look, Ma said, look there. I bet it's dry in that barn. Let's go there till the rain stops. Pa sighed and said, we'll probably just get run out by the fellow what owns it. From the right of the road there came a sharp swishing. Ma cried, hurry up, there's a big rain coming. Let's go through the fence here, it's shorter. Come on now, bear up, Rosa Sharon. They half dragged the girl across the ditch and helped her through the fence, and then the storm struck them. Sheets of rain fell on them. They plowed through the mud and up the little incline. The black barn was nearly obscured by the rain, which hissed and splashed as the growing wind drove it along. Rose of Sharon's feet slipped and she dragged between her two supporters. Ma turned to her husband and said, Pa, can you just carry her? Pa leaned over and picked Rose up. We're all wet through, he said. Hurry up, Winfield. Ruthie, you run on ahead, honey. They came panting up to the rain-soaked barn and staggered into the open. There was no door. A few rusty farm tools lay about, a disc plow and a broken cultivator, an iron wheel. The rain hammered on the roof and curtained the entrance. Pa gently set Rose of Sharon down on an oily box. God Almighty, he said. Ma said, oh, look, there's hay inside. Come on, everybody. It was dark inside. A little light came through the cracks between the boards. Lay down, Rose of Sharon, Ma said. Lay down and rest, and I'll try to figure some way to dry you off. Winfield said, Ma, and the rain roaring on the roof drowned out his voice. Ma, Ma, what is it? What you want? Look in the corner. Ma looked. There were two figures in the gloom, a man who lay on his back and a boy sitting beside him, eyes wide, staring at the newcomers. As Ma looked, the boy got slowly to his feet and came toward her. His voice croaked, you own this here? No, Ma said. We just come in out of the wet. We got a sick girl. You got a dry blanket we could use and get her wet clothes off her? The boy went back to the corner and brought out a dirty comforter, and he held it out to Ma. Thank you, she said. What's the matter with that fellow? The boy spoke in a croaking monotone. Rusty was sick, but now he's starving. He got sick in the cotton. He ain't had for 6 days. Ma walked to the corner and looked down at the man. He was about 50, his whiskery face gaunt and his open eyes vague and staring. The boy stood beside her. That's your pa? Ma asked. Yeah. He says he wasn't hungry or he just ate. He gave me all the food. And now he's too weak. He can't hardly move. The pounding of the rain decreased to a soothing swish on the roof. The gaunt man moved his lips. Ma knelt beside him and put her ear close. His lips moved again. Sure, Ma said. You just be easy. You'll be all right. You just wait till I get them wet clothes off of my girl. Ma went back to the girl. Slip 'em off, she said. She held the comforter up to screen Rose from view, and when Rose was naked, Ma folded the comforter about her. The boy was at her side again, explaining, I didn't know. He said that he ate, or that he wasn't hungry. Last night I went and busted a window and stole some bread. I made him swallow it down, but he puked it all up, and then he was weaker still. Got to have soup or milk? You folks got money to get milk? Hush, said Ma. Don't worry, we'll figure something out. Yeah, but he's dying, I tell you. He's starving to death. Hush, said Ma. She looked at Pa and Uncle John standing, helplessly gazing at the sick man. She looked at Rose of Sharon, huddled in the comforter. Ma's eyes passed Rose of Sharon's eyes and then came back to them. And the two women looked deep into each other. The girl's breath came short and gasping as she said, Yes. Ma smiled. Oh, I knowed you would. I knowed it. Ma looked down at her hands, which were tightly locked in her lap. Rose of Sharon whispered, Will you all please Go out. The rain whisked lightly on the roof. Ma leaned forward and, with her palm, she brushed the tousled hair back from her daughter's forehead, and she kissed her. Ma got up quickly. Come on, you fellas, she called. You come out to the tool shed. Ruthie opened her mouth to speak. Hush, Ma said. Hush and yit. And she herded them all out. For a moment, Rose of Sharon sat still in the whispering barn. Then she hoisted her tired body up, drew the comforter about her. She moved slowly to the corner and stood looking down at the man's wasted face and into the wide, frightened eyes. Then slowly she lay down beside him. He shook his head from side to side. Rose of Sharon loosened one side of the blanket and bared her breast. You got to, she said. She squirmed closer and pulled his head close. There, she said, right there. Her hand moved behind his head and supported him. Her fingers moved gently in his hair. She looked up and crossed the barn, and her lips came together and smiled mysteriously. Okay, that's the end of the book. Ma Joad is one of the strongest, most heroic characters, male or female, in American literature, maybe in literature, period. And she embodies the drive to survive, yes, and to caretake others, not just her family, but whoever else in need she encounters along the way. And Rose of Sharon turns out to be her mother's daughter. Ma Joad is a force of nature. That storm has got nothing on her. She's also the hand of the divine in a suffering world. Rose of Sharon's mysterious smile at the end always intrigues me. It's a compelling image. I picture a kind of Mona Lisa smile. There is no doubt physical relief at releasing the milk from her swollen breast. But there's much more too, an awareness, I think, that in the midst of death, including even her stillborn babies, she, Rose, is able to be a purveyor of life. This is a nativity scene of sorts. The baby's not there, but through Rose, there is this divine presence. This is probably the most empowered that Rose of Sharon Joad has ever felt in her life. And what does it come from? Helping someone in need. Which brings us to the bottom of the list. If I had to pick one and say this is what life's all about, it's love. It's about love. Shall I sing a Nat King Cole song and call it a day?
Yes.
There was a boy, a very strange enchanted boy. They say he wandered very far, over land and sea, little shy and sad of eye, but very wise was he. And then one day, a magic day, he passed my way, and while we spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. I love you guys. Really do. We shouldn't be afraid to use that word, especially these days when it seems to be in short supply a lot of the time. I love you all. I wish you all the best of health and safety and happiness until we meet again. But if there are any questions, comments, I would love to take them at this time. We've run a little bit late, but look, we had a fairly substantial topic to tackle tonight. Thoughts, comments, questions about any of these pieces, about the theme in general, about any of the pieces from last time. Again, to review what we heard today was from Alice Sebold's The Lovely Bones, the first anniversary of my death, and Moonlight Autopsy by Dr. Francisco Gonzalez Cruci from his collection Day of the Dead and Other Mortal Reflections, and The Answering Wind from my novel Unplugged, The Snows of Kilimanjaro condensed, by Ernest Hemingway, and finally, the last scene of the novel, The Grapes of Wrath, Pulitzer Prize winning novel by John Steinbeck. Thoughts, comments, questions? Yes.
The question, what is life for,
Mm-hmm.
suggests the notion of purpose.
Mm-hmm. Purpose, yeah.
And it seems to me that's at the core of a lot of these. I mean, Dana has lost her sense of purpose,
Mhm.
is looking for it. The man in Florida Snow of Kilimanjaro has none
Right.
and wants none.
He's going through the motions,
Yes,
purposeless.
everything
Yes.
has always just been drilled for him.
Mm-hmm.
And Ma Jode obviously has a lot of purpose. You know, she is love personified.
She is.
And so the whole question of purpose and finding a purpose.
Finding a purpose, and therefore having a reason to live. Why on earth would anyone's purpose be drilling at this hour of the night during a public presentation? I don't know. Maybe there's a really good reason for it.
I hope so.
I'd like to think so, yeah. Sense of purpose, right. And when it's gone, so is the will to live.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. In writing workshop last month, we had a piece that was brought in that was essentially about wondering if that will still existed. It was very revelatory and confessional piece, saying essentially, is there a point as my abilities diminish and I can do less and less, and I think everybody reached the conclusion, including the author, that yes, there is a purpose, and that purpose may now be more modestly defined, but it remains. And if you're looking for what it is, again, I would direct you to the bottom of the right-hand column. You know, there are leaders of the world, I won't mention any names, who don't get this at all. And you know what? They're gonna turn 80 soon, and they have a lot of money and power and sway, none of which they can take with them. And if they were smart, they would be focusing on things like making other people's lives richer and better, easier and more joyful. But that's not who we got.
No.
Other thoughts, comments, or questions? Yes.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
I really,
Well, thanks.
just so moving, every single piece.
Thank you.
Very deep, I feel much more grounded and
Oh,
much more connected to something deeper than just the trivial worries.
mm-hmm. Good. I'm really glad to hear that. Working on this program has done the same for me. Presenting it does the same for me. Just some of my favorite people. You know, I lost my parents a long time ago, and I consider you all to be sort of my link to that generation. Of course, now I'm pretty close to that generation. When I started doing this work at retirement communities 20 years ago, you know, these were people who had listened to Perry Como growing up, and now they're people who listened like I did to the Beatles, but we were on different ends of that span. Anyway, wow is a palindrome. It's the same forward as backwards, and that's supposed to bring us luck. So I hope that any wow that any of you might have felt from the work of these writers, that turns into good fortune and health and happiness. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bravo.